Hi to everybody who is joining us, both live on Zoom and via Facebook. Thanks so much for joining us for this Student Life panel as part of St John's Virtual Open Days. It's lovely to see so many people here. If you are watching as part of the Zoom, you're able to submit questions throughout by using the Q&A function. If you are watching on Facebook, feel free to comment with any questions in the chat. My name is Gaia, I'm the Schools Liaison Officer at St John's College, and I'm joined today by some of our wonderful student ambassadors who are here to answer your questions about student life. So I think if we introduce ourselves in alphabetical order, Amy, do you want to go first?
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm a third year English student here at Chang.
Hi, my name's Chang. I'm a first year medical student at Jones.
Hi, I'm Felix. I'm a second year studying human, social and political sciences at Johns.
Hello, I'm Sarah. I'm a first year. I do theology at Johns.
Amazing, thank you. So I'm going to kick off with the first question, and I think it's best if sort of everybody answers this because you'll have different inputs, which is, when did you first hear about Cambridge, and how and when did you decide that you wanted to apply here? Should we go alphabetical order again?
So I first heard, I sort of heard about Cambridge like years and years ago, just as sort of like an abstract concept. When I first thought about it as actually like a real place that people could go to, was sort of in year 12, sorry, there's a train going past. In the summer between year 12 and year 13, I came on a summer school to Cambridge, and I stayed in St John's for a week and sort of had some taster lectures, that kind of thing. And it was in that week that I both realised Cambridge was a real place that people could go to, and that it was a place that I wanted to go to as well. So yeah, it was probably just a few months before actually applying to uni is when I had that realisation about Cambridge and decided to apply.
For me, similar to Amy, I kind of know that Cambridge is like this place that exists, but I don't really have any idea what it's actually like until year 9, when we got invited to the Cambridge Science Festival, I think, and we kind of visited a few colleges that include St John's. To be honest, I was like, I really love this college. At the time, I found Newham a little bit better looking. However, very soon I found out that at the time they only accept girls. So I was like, oh wow, St. John looks like really the one for me. I really want to go there. And then in year 12, I visited Cambridge again on open day. This time I didn't go to St. John's, and I went to a few other colleges and heard about what medicine's like there. And in the end, I decided to apply to St. John's because I really like everything about it.
I think similarly to Amy and Chang, really, I'd sort of heard about it quite a while ago, but it never really seemed like a possibility to me. I hadn't really thought about, whether I would be able to go to Cambridge. And I think it was only when I sort of got my GCSE results and I did quite well, and I sort of was surprised at that, and I went into sixth form, and a teacher sort of suggested that I could start to look at it when I was in year 12, and it was then when it sort of became a possibility, and I thought, oh, actually I could apply here, and the worst that happens is I don't get in, and I've had this cool experience where I've sort of tried to get in, and that was really what encouraged me to see it as a possibility and to think about Cambridge, was the idea that maybe I could be good enough. And if not, the worst that happens is I've learned a load of cool stuff in preparing for it.
Yeah, so like everybody, I kind of knew that Cambridge existed. And I think it became real for me in year 12 when I actually came to Cambridge for a masterclass. And Amy probably doesn't remember this, but I actually went to an English masterclass and she was an ambassador there. And I wasn't sure what college I wanted to apply to because I had been thinking about applying to Cambridge. And she said, oh, apply to St. John's, it's like the best. And I did a little wander around the college and I thought it looked really lovely and I felt at home there. So that's when it kind of became more real for me.
That's fantastic. I really like that story. That's really nice. Awesome. So I guess after you've made that decision, how did you then go, like how did you approach your application process? What sort of preparation did you do? And yeah, how did you approach that in general? Should we maybe go reverse alphabetical order this time?
Yeah. So when I started thinking like seriously about what I wanted to do, and theology kind of emerges the subject I thought I would really want to study for the next 3 years, I talked to my teachers and kind of said, oh, is there any like extra reading I can do kind of thing? And so it doesn't have to be super intense, but if I was interested in a topic that we maybe covered in A level, you could read an extra article on that or listen to a podcast about it. So I'd say it was kind of in the summer of year 12, towards the end of the summer, that I started writing my personal statement. And it was like terrible. It was really long, but it was good to have like a first draft before I went back to school for year 13. So that's like quite an important thing to do. But in preparation for like personal statement or interviews or assessments, I think it's kind of just a matter of finding out maybe what specific assessments that the subject you want to apply for has, and then doing a bit of research and reading around that. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much, just kind of try and explore what interests you beyond the curriculum, and yeah, get a grounding in that.
Yeah, I think similar to Sarah, I think reading was sort of the key thing for me in preparing, and part of that was to work out what it was that I wanted to study, because I was also very unsure. Did I want to study history? Did I want to study politics? Did I want to study sociology? And I was sort of looking at lots of these different subjects, and reading sort of really helped me to work out what I actually found interesting. And then I think beyond that, once I knew that I sort of wanted to apply for a degree that involved sort of having a bit of knowledge of current affairs, a lot of my reading was sort of just keeping up with the news, reading magazines like The Economist and The Spectator and things like that, where they sort of give you a bit of an interesting view, and you look at maybe events that don't just appear on the sort of very, very sort of British focused news, and looking at more international things. And that was really important for me. The other thing I did was had a look at the reading list. Sometimes subjects will give you a suggested reading list for entry. They're absolutely not lists where they're expecting you to have gone through every book on those lists, but they're sometimes a good start. And I found that really useful to give me some reading for my personal statement, give me some reading as well to sort of get an insight into what the course would be like. So yeah, I think particularly for humanities subjects, reading is really important, and it's really a good way to work out whether this is something that you would want to do for 3 or more years.
Unlike most of my peers, I didn't really set my heart on a particular subject at the very start. Doing medicine was kind of suggested to me by my head teacher, because I did GCSE quite good. So she suggested to me, why don't you try medicine? It's a very good subject. You might like it. At the time, I didn't really think I was going to do medicine. I always had my heart set on something a bit more biological, a bit more chemical, not physical. I don't really like physics. With that, I got to year 12, I moved to a different schools, and it kind of occurred to me that maybe I want to do a work experience. This is quite medicine specific, before the pandemic, doing a work experience, and then found out if I kind of like what doctor does in day-to-day doctor life and doing doctor things. In the end, I actually really enjoyed it. So I applied to a bit more help from my teacher, asking them what book should I reading, and Googled reading list for medicine, which seems to be everywhere. Every website has some sort of things in either the colleges or some student website. They seem to suggest what books to read. I read up on those, and then I applied to a research placement, and was doing, which one did it? And it was with cardiologist, and I really enjoyed that aspect as well. So with the research and actual clinical medicine combined, I really much thought it was Cambridge medicine sounds like a very good idea for me. And I think that was when I decided that was about year 12 summer as well, and I started writing my personal statement, made sure I read the books that I said I was going to read in my personal statement, and I also took some initiative doing volunteering with charity shop and volunteer as a first aider with British Red Cross. And later on, I'm still a first aider, but I'm with St. John's Ambulance now. So I think all those experience kind of gave me the perspective of I want to do medicine and helped me write my personal statement.
Yeah, I think for me, the part of the application that I suppose was worried about was the idea that I needed to have some sort of knowledge of English beyond just my A level. So things like doing extra reading was really helpful for that, but also kind of building confidence in talking about English was really important. So we had, I think my year was actually the first year of doing a pre-admissions test for English called the ELAT. And I was worried about that because I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to write down my thoughts on some unseen texts and have them judged. And I found that really like a stressful idea. And I also thought, you know, talking about ideas in an interview is going to be stressful too. What if I come across like really daft or I don't know what to say? So I did lots of prep in terms of like opening poetry books and just rambling out loud at my immediate thoughts on poems and kind of getting used to thinking out loud and saying what you think, even if you're like, oh, it's probably daft and not right, saying it anyway and developing your ideas as you speak. Sort of practicing that was really, really helpful. And that's kind of what I focused on. And then, yeah, I did find that a useful thing to do.
Thank you. Yeah, that all sounds really great. There was some really good advice there. I think the idea of trying to think out loud is really important as well, especially for like the Cambridge system where it's very sort of, you know, have to do the interview and then it's very supervision based. I also really like that Sarah pointed out that your first draft was terrible of your personal statement. I think that's very useful for anyone who's listening, who's just approaching their first draft at the moment. Don't worry if your first draft is bad. It's allowed to be bad, and you can definitely edit that throughout the summer. So yeah, that's great. Cool, so moving on to starting Cambridge, maybe if just the first years answer this question because it's the most recent for you. How did you feel in terms of starting Cambridge, and how have you found the workload, particularly the jump from A level to degree level?
I will start this one this time round. So starting Cambridge was exciting because it's like this place I've been thinking about and it's actually materialized. And first few days of Cambridge, we arrive a little bit before our actual lecture starts. So it's a good free time. We kind of made some friends within our staircase. Because this year's a pandemic, we didn't really allow like any large gathering or meeting lots of people, but I definitely made a few friends, which I was initially scared of, but because we set up group chats within our subject already within the college and within the uni, so even from online, we already know some people that will be in the college and within our subjects as well. So that definitely really helped with my anxiety of not knowing anyone. And then I think first lecture that was shocking, not in a bad way, but in a way that the lecturer will actively try to bring everyone to the same level. We were really surprised that she just covered the entire A-level chemistry and biology, the relevant bits, in one lecture. And I think it's kind of helpful because some of us didn't actually finish our course. So that kind of leveled for everyone and we're on the same starting point very quickly. So I think Cambridge does it really well to help us settling in for the course. And I think because we naturally create the group chats and everything, the social part isn't actually as bad as I would imagine it myself.
Yeah, so leading up to coming to Cambridge, I was really excited. And then on the actual day that I got there, I think all the nerves sort of hit me when I came to the place, because St. John's is beautiful, but it's like really big and it felt kind of unfamiliar and like all these new people. But during Freshers Week, like all of those fears kind of started to slowly fade away, and it was really actually nice to be able to like meet my neighbors, people in my accommodation, other people doing my subject. And after that week or so I felt much more settled. I think in terms of the workload, it's different to A level, because A level is a lot about kind of just memorizing the content. Whether you do 3 or 4 A levels, it's just like kind of getting it in your head and learning it. But with the Cambridge workload, it's more intense, I think, but in some ways more manageable, because you're doing the topics and the subject that you're really invested in and you enjoy. So for theology, and maybe like for humanities more broadly, it's about reading for your essays each week, kind of trying to come up with an argument. It could be a topic you've never studied in your life before, and then by the end of the week, like, you have a more in-depth knowledge of it than you could ever have with an A-level course. So I think that's kind of the difference between the A-level and the university workload, but it is manageable. And yeah, I found in first term and like throughout the year, I had time to make friends and go to events and like join societies and that kind of thing. So starting it definitely was like nerve-wracking at first, but I think once things kind of became real and I wasn't just facing like some imaginary university and set of people in my head, I was able to settle in and like really find my place at John's.
That's good. I'm really glad you both feel settled now and that you've kind of got that support network there as well. Lovely. So I'm going to ask this one to Felix and Amy, because you've got experience of a non-COVID times at Cambridge as well. What does your average day look like?
Okay, so I think the first thing to say is this is obviously very dramatically different depending on your subject. And I think for my subject, one thing that is very important is that for HSPS, we have probably fewer contact hours than most subjects. So a lot of the time is spent doing independent work. And so that really suited me. That was one of the reasons I really wanted to apply for my subject. So I'd say like most of my day is spent reading and writing essays. So I'd maybe have 1 or 2 supervisions a week. So supervisions are these sort of small group teaching where you work with maybe 1 or 2 other people on your course, and then an academic, and you produce a piece of work for them and they'll go over it and give you some feedback, which is really helpful. And then you go away and sort of think about that and then produce another essay for them the next week. And so I'd say my typical day would probably be maybe 1 or 2 lectures. And the lectures are around maybe 50 minutes each. And then maybe a supervision if it's a day when I have a supervision. And then the rest of the day would be spent sort of reading and writing. I think I don't necessarily tend to work the typical 9 to 5 that some people do. And I found that was another key strength of having fewer hours, because it meant that I could really decide when I wanted to work. So sometimes, I feel like I want to work in the evening, don't want to keep my evenings free. Sometimes I have a break over the weekend. And so I'd say that my day sort of change depending on what other activities I want to do. And it means that I can sort of work around those as well. But yeah, I'd say my day is largely dictated by that independent work, with sort of a few contact hours thrown in. And as I say, that really suits me. But people on other subjects will say that they would prefer sort of more contact hours, and some subjects will have those as well.
Yeah, so mine's actually quite similar to Felix's. English is quite, sort of compared to some sort of maybe sciences subjects like natural sciences, they have quite a few more contact hours and labs, that kind of thing. English is very self-led. It's even sort of within our papers, we have a lot of choice over what we write about each week, which means that the lectures don't always match up with what we're doing, which is nice. It means we can sort of pick and choose which ones we go to based on sort of how relevant they are or how interesting they sound. But that can mean that you don't have many lectures in a week if you don't really fancy the sound of a lot of them. We have sort of 1 supervision each week, so as Felix was saying, the kind of small groups. We normally have sort of 1 or 2 students and a supervisor. And then we have 1 seminar a week as well, which is kind of 4 students and a supervisor, sometimes a few more. And so that's sort of 1 essay for the supervision, maybe a bit of reading for the seminar, and then just the rest of that time is free. whilst the seminar and supervisions have set hours, everything else you choose when you do it. And as Felix said, for me, that was really great. I got to pick, I got to figure out what times of day work best for me in terms of like focusing. The John's Library was 24 hours. This sort of pre-COVID, we could go in at any time of day. And so that leaves like so much choice over when you work, which can be difficult to like figure out at the start what to do with all that free time and how to work best. But then as you sort of get used to the degree and get used to the workload, you find you're able to really organize your time to fit exactly how you work best, and giving yourself loads of time to do things you enjoy as well outside of your degree. So I think I was really worried that I wouldn't have time to do stuff outside of my degree. I had this idea that it'd just be like full of working and I'd never stop reading, but I do so many other things as well. There's like hundreds of societies that you can join. There's loads of different like opportunity to spend time with friends and just do normal student relaxing things. As well, and with sort of course with as much flexibility as English.
Fantastic. Sorry, I might have had a bit of a delay there. Sorry if that affected anyone. That brings us really nicely onto our next question, which is what is there to do at Cambridge that's not work? So I think actually it will be quite nice to get an answer from everyone on this, on what sorts of things you do outside of your course, and especially which societies you do. Sarah, do you maybe want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's loads to do. So sport-wise, I play netball at college, but you can also do that at a university level, which is a bit more commitment, but yeah, really fun. And then there's also like literature stuff you can get involved with. I love poetry and that kind of thing. So Cambridge has lots of publications. I'm on the editorial team for like an online magazine called Bait that like publishes art, poetry, prose, anything creative really. You can get involved with like college life. So what we have the JCR, which is like kind of like student council for college, which like organizes events and like helps with any concerns like students have. So I'm secretary in the JCR, like making notes and kind of working with the larger university student union on any issues that we might have. But yeah, there's also like music and drama and theatre and things you can kind of get involved with. I think it's, if it's not there, you could start it, and it probably is there, I think is like the short answer for any other interest you might have.
Lovely. Who else wants to dive in on that one?
If you don't mind, I do it. And so talking about starting societies, we as first year medical students, we actually started one of our own society called MedHike, which is our creative name creating, just combining medicine and hiking. So during Michaelmas, we did quite a lot of work with walking to Grantchester, and that was within COVID laws, and we got people mixing and introducing people from different colleges. And in Lent, it got a little bit more difficult because a lot of people went home, but we persevered and we set up a system to body people up for going on walks. So we helped a lot of people meeting up. And recently we also did a barbecue and a short walk to Grantchester again. We haven't got anywhere near Eli or Waterbench, but that is to my next point. I am also now the president for the Cambridge University Rambling Club. Yes, I am plugging all my societies here to add, and it's free. I'm taking the opportunity. Rambling Club does a bit more walk. We are a very long established society, and you can't see it in the background, but on the floor there's like boxes of map, and we have very experienced people doing the walks. And recently they just completed the annual varsity march from Oxford to Cambridge, no sleep, and obviously they could take break. And I think they completed it in 36 hours and raised money for the shelter charity in Oxford. So I think they're obviously doing great stuff, and I'm very proud to be the president for that. On top of that, I'm also the events officer for the Cambridge Student Union's LGBT campaign. For that, so far I've organized a picnic in the Easter term, which is our final term in Cambridge. There's 3 terms in Cambridge. And I also organized a garden party that was hosted at Christ College. Generally, there's just so much to do, and you can always find people like me who try to organize stuff, either on a local college level or on a university level. So I think there's lots to get involved with.
It's really fantastic. Yeah, sounds great. Although the rambling sounds very exhausting. I'm not sure I could walk for 36 hours. That's amazing. Did Felix or Amy want to chip in on that as well? Or?
Yeah, I can. I think similar to Chang and Sarah, one thing that is really great about Cambridge is the fact that you can do things at a college and university level. And so, you know, despite my fears that my entire time is just going to be spent working, I've also, you know, similar to Chang and Sarah, been able to do lots of really fun stuff outside my degree. So at a college level, like Sarah, I'm on the JCR, so I'm the access officer on the JCR. So I work with Gaia in the admissions office, and also sort of work with current students just to try and make college very inclusive and try and ensure that we're sort of staying accessible. And I also, at a university level, do quite a lot of fundraising. So there are 2 big fundraising organisations in Cambridge that I work with, Cambridge RAG, which stands for Raising and Giving, and MWA, or May Week Alternative, who sort of raise money, particularly for a summer party during the period after exams, which we call May Week. And so there are lots of, in that period, there are lots of sort of May balls and garden parties and lots of celebrations. And so that's sort of one of those where we try to bring charity into that as well. And so, yeah, there's lots of really cool things you can do. I know people who, you know, one of the things that everyone says about Cambridge is you can always kind of fill time, and people sometimes, you know, will take on a new thing and magically find the time. But I think the important thing as well is there is also like nothing wrong with spending time just, you know, watching Netflix or playing table football with your friends and things. So I think that's the other thing, is that people tend to work hard because, you know, Cambridge is a tough environment, but also people tend to be very good at also relaxing and taking breaks. And I think that's something that's really important, particularly this year when everyone's been sat at a computer. It's been really good to see that people are taking breaks, and there are lots of opportunities to do that, which is really good.
Lovely. Cool. So next question. We had quite a lot of questions about what the support networks are like in college and in the university in general. And we had one specific question about how the college family system works as well. Does anyone want to jump in on that one?
I will go ahead with one. So the college family is, you will be assigned normally at least one parent, I'd say. I have 2 college dads. They're both second year medical students. So as normally, I think you will get people from your same course. So they are very helpful and kind of reassure us that, you know, first year medicine might be hard, but there's definitely a way to work around it, and you can definitely ask for help. And they also give us lots of pointers about just student life in general and the course and more specific things about the course, like what to be prepared about, and they kind of forewarn you if there's particularly difficult thing that you encounter. And I think just knowing what you might encounter is really helpful because you kind of mentally prepared for it. And on the other hand, like college parents are generally like alternative person to talk to if you're not comfortable talking to your director of study who looks after your study side, or your tutor who looks after your welfare side. I think the good thing about having college parents is they are like students, they've been there before, and they kind of be able to empathize with you a bit more. And obviously you don't have to talk to your college parents if you don't want. There's just so many people you can talk to. And I think having some older students that kind of officially binded to you is a very good way of helping you out. And except college itself with its amazing support staff, there's also uni level support. And the university counseling service is brilliant and generally respond to your queries if you need counseling. And I think the most difficult thing for you to get support is to ask for support. I think if you ask, there's always support available.
Fantastic, thank you. You, I think, briefly touched on the college tutor system. Does anyone want to explain that a bit further? Maybe Amy, do you want to chip in?
Yeah, so the way that the kind of tutorial system works is that everyone is given a tutor. They generally study a different, like they are an academic in a different subject to you. Not always, but like generally that seems to be the case. And they're there to support you with sort of anything that's not work related, because as Chang mentioned, that's kind of what the Director of Studies is there to help you with. So your tutor can support you with kind of financial things. If you find yourself in some sort of financial hardship, they can help you, they can sort of point you in the direction of support, and they can advise you with that kind of thing. They can also be just kind of a listening ear as well. I spent a lot of time in first year talking to my tutor right at the beginning when I was sort of adjusting to everything and everything was new. I felt really kind of lost, and I just would speak to my tutor because he was a friendly face for that. They can also sort of point you in the direction of other people to speak to. So like one kind of group that I spoke to quite a lot was the DRC, which is a university level thing. It stands for the Disability Resource Centre. So when I got here, I really struggled kind of managing my workload. I was like, I just couldn't seem to do it. And I spoke to my tutor about it and my worries with that, and he sort of pointed me in the direction of the DRC, and then he supported me, and they did as well with getting a diagnosis for ADHD. And then my tutor again was the one who helped me get sort of things put in place for exams and all that kind of stuff to support me with that. So yeah, I think the tutor system is a really good one, and you can get a lot of support from it if you're willing to ask. That is the big thing, as Chang says. If you ask for help, you'll get it, but you won't get help if you don't ask.
Thanks so much. Lovely. So another topic that we've had a lot of questions about is the accommodation at St John's. Felix, do you maybe want to explain how accommodation works and anywhere that they can find out more about that?
Yeah, so I did see one of the questions. So every student at St John's as an undergraduate is given accommodation for the full length of their course, which is a really, really good thing. You know, often people at the universities will tell you that how stressful sort of dealing with private landlords is, and being able to sort of have college accommodation there is a real bonus. So in your first year, you're allocated accommodation, so you do have the opportunity to say if you have any sort of access requirements and preferences around this, and that will be taken into account. But in first year, you're sort of given a room, and you'll get your own bedroom. Sometimes you'll be sharing a bathroom or a kitchen with other people, and that's, you know, a great way to get to know people. And freshers are sort of concentrated in two main parts of college. So you're in the Cripps building, which is a very modern building. I think Chang is there now. And then some freshers are in North and Chapel Court, which is a slightly older part of college, but again, sort of very modern rooms, and they're all really lovely. And then after first year, we have a ballot system. So the way that our ballot works is you put preference for sort of what size, whether you want to go for a single room or ballot with a friend. So sometimes you can go for double sets, which are where you have your own bedroom, but you share a bathroom with one other person and a kitchen. And you get to sort of choose a room based on where in that ballot you come. But again, you know, I don't know anyone who's very unhappy with their room. I think even if you end up nearer the bottom of the ballot, you still get a very good room. So yeah, it's a really good system. It's a slightly different system at postgraduate level, but again, you know, it's still the same sort of system. We have a lot of rooms on site. We also have some rooms in hostels, which are houses which are off site but within walking distance. And again, those are also well furnished, and the college own them, so you're still not having to deal with private landlords. So it's a good system. I think everyone is largely happy with it at John's. Again, it's the sort of thing where you might want to look at how the accommodation differs from other colleges, but largely the sort of quality is going to be high, regardless of where you're looking.
Fantastic, thank you. And yeah, also worth plugging at the moment that we've got a brand new virtual tour which has just launched. So if anyone wants to look around the college and look at the accommodation, that's on our website now. It's very handy to be able to see what all the different rooms look like. Great, so sorry, I've got a lot of questions coming in and we're running a little bit short on time, so I'm really sorry if I don't get to people's questions. Hopefully we'll be able to email you and address those if we don't get to you before the end of this session. I've had a couple of questions of people asking, why did you choose St. John's over other colleges? What is special about St. John's? And then kind of what would you say the best and the worst things about the college are? So sort of lots of questions wrapped up in one there. Sarah, should we maybe start with you?
Yeah, so I chose St. John's because I think it was the college where I visited where I kind of just felt at home, and I say that I got good vibes from it, which is not a very practical, helpful answer, but is really the only way I can kind of describe it. So it's hard during like this time, like COVID and everything, but I'd encourage you as much as is possible when you're able to come and visit Cambridge, because I think that's going to give you kind of the best sense of which college might be for you. There are obviously like other kind of practical considerations you can think about. So location, so John's and like Trinity and King's are colleges that are quite close to like the city centre. Some other colleges like Girton and Homerton are further out, so it depends what kind of experience you'd like. Also size, so John's is a fairly big college in terms of actual physical size and like number of people who go there, so you might want a smaller one or a big one, and that's also up to you. But generally I think it's kind of hard because all the kind of things that make a college you won't really find out until you get there. So I would say not to worry too much about your choice, but to just kind of go with your gut, what feels right to you.
Lovely. Does anyone else want to chip in on that?
Just a side note, I have, of all the people I know, I haven't heard anyone that's not happy with their colleges. So I'd say, regardless if you ended up going to John's or other colleges, and I'm very sure you'll enjoy it regardless where you go. However, if you do like just a college that feels Cambridge-ish, like the medieval building, the lovely new Gothic buildings, and I think New Court, which is one of the courts that's Neo Gothic, was definitely the plot, and the British side is lovely. I think that's definitely, when I walked past it, that was definitely the point I was like, I love this place. The worst thing about John's is how big it is. It is a massive college, and I had to emphasize this. As Felix pointed out, I am still currently in the Cripps building. I am in Merton Court, which I presume is the furthest court away from the main gate of the college. So for me to get into city centre, it is about a 5-minute walk. However, that is normally the most exercise I would do at all time in normal week during term. So it's far with walking distance. However, it's not bad. It's good side with bad sides. Except that I think, just like Sarah, I did visit and just felt it was the right place to go. Before that, I obviously visited other colleges. And I think John's was the one that impressed me the most with its architecture and everything. So I think definitely choose John's.
Lovely, thank you. We've got a couple of questions here that I don't think we're going to get to, but I've got quite quick answers, so I'm just going to cover them really quickly. Someone has asked about like medical rooms, medical emergencies. We have porters at the gates of college who are all first aid trained. And there's also a college nurse as well for any kind of medical emergencies. Some people have asked about accommodation fees. That information should be available on our website with the most up-to-date information about that. And some, question just popped through. It just says great answers about choosing a college. So well done, guys. Yeah, and a couple of questions about how many students we have for each subject. Just to say, all of that information is online if you just Google Cambridge application statistics. But I think that choosing a college based on how many students from each subject get in isn't necessarily the best way of going about things, just because we like it does vary a lot year to year. It fluctuates quite a bit. So don't pick one just because you think like, oh, lots of people got in for that subject at this college last year. Great. I think we are sort of running towards the end of time now, so I'm actually going to give our last question, which I'd like an answer from everyone for, which is, what are you most looking forward to for next year? Everyone's immediately got their thinking faces on. Amy, should we go with you first?
Oh yeah, okay. Gosh, I think for me, it's actually properly spending a lot of time in college again. I've not spent a huge amount of time in college this year. I'm living in a house in Cambridge rather than in the middle of college itself. Whereas in the other years, I was living in the middle of college. So I've missed being in college a lot, especially with lots of like lockdown stuff happening. So I'm looking forward to just being able to wander around college again. One of my favourite things about John's is all of the sort of wildlife at the back. We have this big sort of grass area called the backs, and then past that we have lots of like smaller wildflower meadowy type things, and like different like trees and bushes and stuff. And we have like deers that live there, and foxes as well, and badgers. And I'm just looking forward to like being in that bit again, like my favourite bits of John's that I always miss whenever I'm not there. So in any sort of vacation, I miss it. Yeah, that's what I'm most looking forward to next year, just being in John's again.
That's really nice, yeah. Great, Chang?
I am still currently in college, so I definitely will miss it the second I leave. My view from this window is absolutely amazing. I can see the bags, I can see the river, I can see a little bit of Trinity and King's. And also, if I walk right down the stairs, I will get to the garden Amy mentioned. It's a lovely place. I always thought to myself, why didn't I go there more during term time? Probably for a reason. But next year I will be living in a house with my friends, as Felix explained about the balloting system. I am really looking forward to like experience a different type of uni accommodation, and especially I'll be living with people I want to live with. However, the house is not very far from the college itself at all. So if I want to pop back to the college, it will be a minute walk really. So, and on top of that, I think I'm actually looking forward to study my subject for second years. I think during the course of the year, I might have complained about my course a lot. However, that is kind of my way of expressing how much I love my course. I love it, so I complain about it. I think studying at Cambridge is definitely exciting because you really get grasped with the fundamental reasoning of everything you learn. It's a lot different from A-level where you kind of taught this is how it is. In Cambridge, if the lecturer doesn't mention it, your supervisors who will have like smaller group teaching with you will definitely drill you to the nitty-gritty bits about why this happens and how it happens and why it's important. And I think it's really great for understanding, and I think that's definitely making me a better scientist.
Fantastic, thank you. Felix?
I think I'm looking forward to most seeing my supervisors and my sort of tutors not on Zoom. I think that we got to the point where you know, John's was very good at allowing us to sort of see friends in a fairly safe way, and that was really great towards the end of the year. But the thing I've missed the most, I think, is being sort of sat in a room with an academic who is much smarter than me and who's often written half the books that I'm reading for an essay, and just being able to sort of sit there and go, I'm in this room and this is what being at Cambridge is about. And yeah, so although it's been great on Zoom, I think I'm looking forward to sort of sitting in a room with them as well next year.
That's very understandable. Lovely. And Sarah?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to second year. I as we mentioned with the college family system, I'm looking forward to getting some college children in first year and kind of telling them all the best places to go in Cambridge and like giving them advice and that kind of thing. And yeah, so I was here after exams in Cambridge for like quite a while, and it was actually just a really nice few weeks of going to brunch, going bowling, like experiencing Cambridge kind of without workload. So I want to kind of take that energy into second year as well and have a good balance between working but also spending time in the city and enjoying being there.
Fantastic, thank you. Some really lovely answers there. Thanks so much. So that brings us to the end of the panel. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful panelists. You've given some fantastic answers. And thank you so much to everyone who's tuned in, both on Zoom and via Facebook. I'm really sorry if we didn't manage to get to your questions. I had a lot of them come in. The good news is that we are still running some other Q&As. So the JCR are currently running a takeover on the Instagram. So you should be able to ask any questions there if you would still like to. We also have a Slido running with the admissions team, so if anyone has any technical questions, feel free to direct them there. Or of course, you can always email us at any point at the admissions office, and we will answer any questions that you'd like us to. So yeah, finally just say thanks to everybody for joining, and I hope everyone has a lovely rest of their day. Bye.